You know, it's really funny. They give me notes, and I don't need them to introduce Jonathan Ronzio but I do want to tell you a little story about him that will help frame this. So Jonathan is probably the person that if you wanted to learn anything or know anything, he's the guy who knows everything. But also, you guys sat up here. He was literally sitting here. I overpromised. He doesn't know everything, but he's the person who will figure it out. That's for sure. And one of the things I love is, like, not only was he this outdoor guy who happens to go climb mountains and make us all feel bad about ourselves, right? He's not just that guy. He's also a CMO, an executive, a chief revenue officer. He's also in a band and an incredible singer and songwriter and plays the guitar. So this talk about the art of doing everything without sacrificing anything is probably the most on-brand thing that this person's ever done in his entire life. Because if you know that not only does he do all those things, but he does them to exceptional levels, right? Like crazy levels. So this talk is going to encapsulate who I think he is, and I'm more than excited that we're closing it out with somebody who I feel like is going to show you a special walk through their life and actually living this title out. So can we maybe just, because it's the last keynote, can we get on our feet this time and get a little energy and get some good music? And can you welcome Jonathan Ronzio?
All right, Playbook. How we all doing? We're gonna have some fun. Again, just like yesterday, how we ended the day with something that wasn't necessarily process and business. It was more about life and how to balance. That's what this final session is gonna be about. It's gonna be something that does affect how successful you are in your business. I'm not gonna be up here playing a whole concert for you, but I am gonna play one thing. A little intro, don't worry. I'll bring this to the Mercury Training Center. I'll play more. But this is, who remembers the song that Trainual released with Montel Jordan? Yes, all right. So a couple years ago, I co-wrote a remix to This Is How We Do It with Montel. Chris's slides this morning showed you that picture of us and Montel, and he was joking about this is how we do it versus how he's always done it. Well, we wrote a remix to that song I did with him a few years ago, and it's called This Is How You Do It. And I'm gonna open up by playing, for the first ever time to an audience, an acoustic version of this. Thank you. The only other time this has been played was actually Montel performing it at the Suns halftime show. I'm gonna see if I can one-up him. "24/7 we up, make a lifestyle higher than a mug. Been a real long time coming up, but we ain't slowing down, can't stop it now. My energy hot to death, so fly I should clone myself. Got my playbook tucked in, I'm ready. People doubted me, but just wait and see. Can't count all the ways I've been down, I've been burned, but these are the lessons I've learned. This is how you do it when the grind takes more than 9 to 5, yeah. This is how you do it when we roll through, baby, I'ma show you. This is how you do it, won't stop till we sitting on top. This is how you do it, this is how you do it, yeah. I do what I love what I do. Let me show you how I do what I do. All right, I'm gonna end it there. Whoop. I wanted to end it on that because I think that's the most important line of the song. I do what I love what I do. And then, of course, let me show you how I do what I do. So I'm gonna walk you through a little bit of life and planning and goal setting and how to achieve it all, right? So this was recording that song. This song was only possible, this campaign was only possible because of me learning to be a marketer as a musician. When I was 12 years old and I saved up $200 because I wanted to buy a trampoline. I got the money. My dad said, no way. You're not getting a trampoline. That is a risk for anybody who comes to the house. Like, no. If he had let me bought that, maybe I'd be like a world-class gymnast today or something, right? But instead, the next best thing was I was like in 6th grade. I'm starting to listen to Blink-182. My friends and I are like, cool, let's start a band. So I bought a guitar with the $200. And then through middle school and through high school, I played music, and learning how to be a marketer was part of, I didn't know it at the time, but was part of learning how to be a musician, right? Because the fact is, marketing is getting your message out there. It is creating something and then figuring out how to get anybody else to pay attention to it. And not just anybody else, but the right anybody else to pay attention, right? And so as a 15-year-old, I learned how to make a website. I went into the woods with my friends and houses that were under construction to take promo shots. And I learned how to record music. I wrote songs and started to think about storytelling and copywriting. I didn't know it was called copywriting at the time. Thought it was just, I'm writing lyrics, I'm writing poetry, I'm rhyming, I'm figuring out how to take an emotion, a concise message, and communicate it in a way that makes somebody else understand how I'm feeling, and in a way that gets them to resonate with that same feeling, right? All of that. I learned how to code by changing the background color of my band's MySpace page, right? Learned the little HTML breaks and italic and bold and all of that. And so all of these principles of marketing, it was distribution, it was getting on stage. I'm only comfortable here talking to all of you right now because I learned how to be comfortable behind a guitar. So raise your hand though, because this is something that I have dealt with at many different points along my life that I still feel in a big way. Raise your hand if you feel like your story is kind of all over the place. It doesn't make sense where you're at today based on where you've been, right? But somehow you're there. What about, have you ever struggled to answer, what do you do? Yeah. That's the tough question at the holiday party. We're coming up to the holidays. Everybody, when you leave the after party at the Mercury, you go back to your hotel or wherever you're staying, maybe your house if you're local, sit down and figure that out. What am I going to say at Thanksgiving when somebody asks, what do you do, right? What about, you ever worry about wasting time on the wrong thing? Opportunity cost. And you have goals and dreams that you want to achieve, but you never seem to prioritize making time for. Does that sound familiar? I see a lot of head nods and a lot of hands. Thank you for being honest. I have felt this for so long. This has been such a big part of my story because I've been all over the place. I have so many different interests and passions and curiosities that take me down random different paths. But one thing I started learning about myself is that I didn't want to be Alex Honnold. I wanted to be more like a Richard Branson, right? Anybody seen Free Solo? You don't become the best rock climber in the world. You don't climb a 3,000-foot slab of granite without ropes, without singular focus and dedication on one thing. And that's amazing. I respect the hell out of Alex. It's cool if that's your path, if you've got your one thing. But I knew that I didn't want that. I had too many different interests. Richard, built Virgin that plays in a million different categories. They're in space, they're on land and sea and records and water and whatever else, right? He doesn't have any kind of limit to the opportunities that he chases. He set world records flying hot air balloons across the globe as an adventurer. He spends time and dedicates himself to his family. All of those things, right? Very well-rounded adventurer, entrepreneur. And you don't get there with singular focus. You get there by letting your talents, your curiosities, and your creativity guide you. For a while, I thought that the things that defined me were that I was a marketer, a musician, and a mountaineer. I thought that was really cool for a while. I was like, oh, that's my Instagram profile, bio. I love the alliteration. You'll notice Chris and I both love alliteration. We've got the 5 C's and the 7 F's that you'll learn about later and all this, right? But marketer, mountaineer, musician, that was like part of what I let fuel my identity. But that led me down a path of not knowing which one would lead me to success, and feeling this tug of war across all these different places, and feeling like I had one foot in the outdoor community and one foot in the business community, and never being fully accepted by those. And oh wait, that passion I had for music all those years ago that I just haven't written a song in 8 years. What happened to that? Why can't I put pen to paper and unlock a new song in the same way that I used to when I was 18 and on an airplane and looked at the clouds out the window and could instantly just let that come out of me? That's gone because I'm here and because I'm here. How do I do all of this? And I realized the reframe was that the M words that defined me were my ability to motivate and my ability to harness momentum. Motivation and momentum. And I would say one of the secret sauces to Trainual's success, everything we've done in the last almost 7 years, has been driven by momentum. Speed of execution. My team knows that I like to say we act and execute at the speed of ideas. And it's okay if not all of them work. But momentum is what unlocked it. And so that's when I think back to how this all started to make sense. When we did this campaign and I wrote this song, and then we got into a studio with Montel in Brooklyn, and Damon, who was up here earlier, he was part of this commercial campaign too. And when we did this, and I sat there that night, laid my head on the pillow at the hotel room, I was nearly crying. I was teary because I was like, holy shit, all of this is starting to make sense. Everything that I have been is starting to intersect with everything that I am. And now it's making sense. Now it doesn't look like this big zigzagging line that I'm like, how the hell did I become this SaaS founder CMO guy when I was just climbing mountains a couple years ago, when I was just releasing songs years before that? How does that work? And this campaign was the epitome of how it worked. Because that didn't happen without that. Without 15-year-old Jonathan and the songs that he wrote and the shows that he played. In the same way, I had this massive identity crisis at the start of launching this business, where for 6-7 years, my life looked like that. I was just getting paid to travel around the world and test products with amazing brands and write about it and create adventure films and lead expeditions. And this was what I was doing, and it looks like a dream life. But I wasn't successful. I was collecting experiences, and I was having a hell of a time, but I wouldn't call myself successful at that time. Yet still, I had built this personal brand around when anybody thought, oh, if I want to go snowboard in the backcountry on these big mountains, who am I going to talk to? If I want to go volunteer at an elephant park in Thailand, who am I going to talk to? I was the go-to person for all those things about adventure. I had built a massive following on Twitter, and I had this blog that was getting hundreds of thousands of readers. That was my personal brand. And then all of a sudden, I made this pivot, this crazy pivot, to this software product. How did that make sense? Well, I got there because Chris had the product, and when I went to Denali, I was climbing Denali. I was off the grid for like 3 weeks, and I tried the product. I used the beta version of Trainual then to take myself out of my business, my adventure media company, and to document all the things that had to still happen for the 3 weeks I was on the glacier and give it to my staff writers and anybody I was working with at the time to keep that going. It was the first time that I had ever gotten myself out of it. Chris was really good at delegating because he delegated everything to me, the little kid brother. I was really good at taking it all on, and that probably formed a lot of this identity of being able to do everything and balance it all. But delegation was harder for me to learn. But that's what the pivot was about, because we hadn't worked together for about 6 years. We came back together to get Trainual off the ground. I'm like, yeah, this is cool. I'll help you build all the stories and the site and the funnel, and then I'll go back to my life and adventure. Turns out this was more fun. It was more fulfilling to work with my brother and to take everything that I had done and learned about adventure and storytelling, and the fact that I was doing these adventure films and winning awards. I took that to an industry I really knew nothing about, B2B SaaS. but that allowed us to do something different, to build a brand that didn't look like everything else. And so that, on the left, everything we've done to build Trainual's brand doesn't exist without the adventure filmmaker in me on the right. And that's when things start to make sense, in retrospect. I see some head nods because you're all thinking, I know you're internalizing this to your own story. When you think back, yeah, you're right, it didn't make a lot of sense where I am, but now I can see the fact that I worked as a bartender at this restaurant, I learned how to balance all these different things and learned how to serve 500 people in a night and could still think back to that random martini order, right? Like you honed those skills along the way. Now, I know Candy just rocked the stage. I saw her throw this quote out. This is what it's about. The goal is to build a business and a life that aligns with who you are. Goldie talked about that too, right? For the multi-hyphenate people out there, like it's okay to be a bunch of different things. The goal is to align your brand, your business, and your lifestyle around who you are. It took more, though, than a perception shift on going from what I identified myself as to the strengths that fueled me. It took more than a perspective shift on that. This is a screenshot from a course that I taught for General Assembly. Does anybody know this brand? General Assembly teaches people design and code, and it's kind of like it's an alternative school situation. And I taught a course, this was I think in 2015, on unplanning. That was the name of the course, Unplanning. Because that was what I was championing at the time. I had come back from this crazy trip where I was on the road for 4.5 months through South and Central America, not really knowing what would happen. I was comfortable buying a one-way ticket to Iceland and landing and not having an itinerary and just figuring it out along the way when I got hit with a blizzard or whatever else. I had built this life resume around being comfortable with unplanning, with not having things dialed in, and being okay with rolling with it. And so I was championing that message. I was telling everybody, just forget the plans. Don't worry about it. He was unsuccessful. This version of me that was up on stages talking about unplanning was having cool experiences, but didn't have enough money to buy a house, right? This version of me didn't have sometimes enough money to pay the next month's rent. This version of me had a ton of credit card debt. This version of me was faking it to make it and still aspiring and still trying 1,000 different things along the way. Idea after idea, domain after domain, right? I was trying, but unplanning was not the way. That was the big shift I also had to realize. And so what it came down to, for me to understand, how do I still remain authentic to myself and pursue all these different things? Well, the art of doing everything, hey, turns out it's planning. I was an idiot. Comes down to 3 things: goal setting, time blocking, and delegating. Those are the 3 things we're gonna roll through right now. Because it seems so simple, right? These are not novel concepts. And all of you might be good at some of these, all of these in different ways. I'm just gonna walk you through the system that has worked for me to achieve the things that I have. I would say that person you saw in the last photo was not successful. Me, I am not faking it to make it today. I'm proud, I'm trying not to brag or anything, but I feel successful today, and I'm happy. I'm happily married. I'm a father of a 2.5-year-old. I've got 3 pets back home. I live in Boston. I ran the New York City Marathon with my brother 10 days ago for type 1 diabetes, and played a show with 9 of my new songs at a bar in Massachusetts, or a music club in Massachusetts 2 days ago before flying here. Like, all of these things because of simply aligning my life around these. And then my friend texted me this: I want to be on the monitor end of an X-ray machine at the airport to confirm you aren't, in fact, a machine. And that's what I want for all of you. I want somebody to say, hey, like, do you ever unplug? Like, do you just die at night? What happens, right? All right, so let's talk about goal setting. What I use for goal setting, at the end of every year, this is going to happen next month for me. At the end of every year, I do this, and then I also ask my wife to do it, and then we compare notes, and it goes into what fuels the following year. I call it the 7F goal setting system. These 7 boxes right here. It's very simple. Family. what are the things that I want to do with my family? Family has to come first. What are the things in this coming year that I want to do with my friends? What are the investments that I need to make in family and friends, right? Relationships. Fitness. What is my next big challenge? What is the thing that is going to keep me motivated? I think sometimes I struggle to call myself an athlete because if I don't have a race on the horizon, I can just fall into a sedentary lifestyle because I'm so busy with other things and travel happens and I'm here for events and annual planning with the team and whatever else, right? Things just pile up. And so if I don't have a mountain or a race or something already that I'm signed up for, that I know the date is there, then sometimes I just let it slip. So fitness, what are my goals for next year? The things that I need to train myself for. Fulfillment. A lot can go into this bucket. For me, this is a big one about creativity. It was a reflection after those years of feeling like I couldn't sit down with a guitar and even write a song anymore. It was because I was burnt out in so many other areas and I wasn't giving myself the time to be creative. And so fulfillment can be about creativity. It can be about faith. What are the things that just build you up inside? Finance. This can be professional or personal or both. What are your financial goals? What are your growth goals from a savings standpoint, from an investment standpoint? What's your business growth goal? And then future. How are you setting yourself up for success in the future? This could be your personal brand. That doesn't happen overnight. That's a future effort that you need to build to. This could be, hey, I don't have life insurance or a living will, and I need to get those things, right? This could be that I need to set up a savings account for my child. I haven't done that yet. And I need to start auto depositing. What are you doing in your future? And the last bucket, I like to say I'm a master of, a jack of all trades, master of fun. Because at the end of the day, at the end of the year, you want to look back and know that you had fun with everything that you did. When you look at your year in review, did it have enough fun? Same thing with your business, right? Like all of you want to build a culture that is fun to go to work, that you have fun with the people that you work with. And so that's why fun is the reflection on your year. And you need to have the lens of, am I building in enough fun in my goals before you even start it? So just for some examples, you can have a bunch of things in each of these buckets. For me, a big one that my wife and I talked about was we wanted to bring our family to Disney because my son Chase, he's 2.5, and I think after 3 years old, you have to pay for them at Disney. So we were like, let's go to Disney before he costs any money. So Disney trip was something that we wanted to do for family. Friends, 2 of our best friends just started dating. Well, not just, but a year ago. Just started dating would have been weird to propose an Iceland double date. But they had been dating for a year, and so we decided, hey, we're in Boston. It's a 5-hour flight to Iceland. Wouldn't that be fun? Let's just fly a red-eye on a Friday night to Iceland and hit a day and a half of spas and adventures in Iceland and fly back. What a freaking weekend that would be. And so that was on the agenda for friends. But again, there's lots of different things that you can add to this list. Going to concerts with your high school friends, staying in touch, simply writing a letter or texting somebody every month that you don't normally talk to, that you want to build those relationships with and keep them with. For fitness, it was the New York City Marathon. Chris and I knew that that was happening. And so we had to stay in marathon shape all year. For fulfillment, it was getting back to music. I wanted to play a show every quarter and release some new songs. So I had to prioritize writing, getting in the studio, recording, and actually getting back with some bandmates and playing some songs and being able to book some shows. Finance, we set a goal to keep Trainual's growth rate up and accelerate over 40% this year. And then on future, you might notice I'm wearing this CGM. It's a continuous glucose monitor. This became about audit and optimize my health. I wanted to check what are the things that affect my blood sugar? What are the foods? What are the activities? What are the adrenaline spikes that I need to watch out for? And how do I optimize my health? I did what's called a Dutch test, which is like you pee on a stick and then they tell you like where are all your hormone levels at and what are you deficient in and what are your stress levels? And so I went down this journey of health optimization to make sure that I'm around for a while as we build our family. I see the joy in my son as he's learning to put on a pair of figure skates or try snowboarding or come and drum with me when we're having band practice, and I want to be around for a while, right? So that became a future goal. So when I look at all of that, am I going to have a fun year? Am I happy with that? I can tell you right now, hell yeah, I'm happy with that. But none of that happened without setting the goals and without writing that down a year ago and aligning on how does this become possible with my wife, right? And figuring out what are the support systems at home and in the business that I need to be able to give myself the time and space to create and to pursue these things. So that's the 7F goal setting framework. Maybe you do something similar. Maybe you use different words, but you do an annual planning. How many do have like a system for goal setting and annual planning? Okay. After today, how many will? I want to see every hand up. Those that had their hand down, please use this. Use something. Figure out what works for you. All right, time blocking. So I signed up for a coaching program with Jesse Itzler this year. Is anybody familiar with Jesse? Some fans in the room. So Jesse is the founder of Zico Coconut Water, Marquee Jet, Running Man, a running festival, a bunch of different companies. He's married to Sarah Blakely, who founded Spanx and now Sneaks. I think I saw Liz, our director or our VP of product design, rocking some Sneaks around here. So I signed up for this coaching program with Jesse. I've been a part of this year. Jesse has a product called the Big Ass Calendar. And this is how I took everything that was on the 7F goal setting framework and put it in one place. I said, all right, what are all the times that I'm like, what are the races that I'm signing up for? What are the concerts that are on the books? What are the birthdays that we need to plan around for family? What are the vacations that we want to have? All of that went on first. And then it was also, okay, purple. That's when I have to be at the Trainual office. I live in Boston. I come out here a lot. But the purple is when we had board meetings, when we had quarterly strategic planning, and when I knew that I would be away. And when I can see the entire year at a glance, color-coded, red is adventure, purple is office, pink is when my wife was traveling and I needed to be home like 100%. Orange was like races and fitness stuff. Yellow is birthdays. Like when I can look at the entire year and realize how I'm balanced, it's so powerful because I can see, this is how it kind of netted out. But I could see early on when I first filled this out, oh, I'm away too much here. I need to figure out how to move that thing. I need to figure out how to be home more here. I too much business here. I need to add in some friends trips here. Like when you see your year at a glance, it is wildly powerful. So I couldn't recommend this calendar more. So that's like macro view, right? 7F goal setting, figure out what you want to do in all these areas of your life, then take a look at your year and figure out where it pencils in. Because if you don't do that, work fills it up, right? Get the things in that you want, and then let everything else fill around it. But you have to have the intentionality and be proactive. So then you take it from the year look down to, this is a week look. This is my ideal week. This does not happen every week, I assure you, especially when I'm traveling. But on an ideal week, it's fortunate that I'm in Boston and most of the team is in Arizona, and so I have some nice open mornings where I can go for a run or I can go swimming, and I can spend some time with my son. I can take him to swim class if I need to. I can just have breakfast with my son and my wife and have coffee, and that's great. And then I get into meetings or focus time, generally between that 9:30 to 10:30 range, but I know I'm going a little later. I know that I'm definitely not dialing out before 6. Oftentimes that goes into 6:30, 7, but I make sure that I'm blocking out the time for fitness, for family, for focus time, because you need that. All of you need focus time because, again, meetings, business will fill it up. Block it out. And then I make sure we've got date night. I make sure I have band practice. Like blocking, time blocking, making sure, just like you had on your calendar, that your week looks the way you want it. It won't always look like that, but make sure you take the time to do the exercise. What is your ideal week? And now this is something my dad wrote. This is a lesson from him. So growing up, he used to say these two things: do it now and finish. Do it now stuck with me a little bit more for whatever reason. I don't know why. But do it now was at the time something about when he called and he was on his way home from work and he said, hey, can you preheat the oven? If he got home and that oven was cold, whew, not good. If we wanted to go and play with some friends after school, he'd say, do your homework, do it now, and play later, right? Do it now was about that stuff. To the point where our Windows 95 desktop compact computer had a screensaver that said, do it now. Just scrolling. That instilled in me, I reflected back later, it instilled in me this crazy relationship with time, with this impulse to act. And that's where execute at the speed of ideas comes from. So on a macro scale, you're planning your year. You've got your year at a glance, and you're making sure it contains every single goal in every category that you care about. On a weekly cadence, you're looking at what is my ideal week? How am I most productive? And how do I track towards those goals by time blocking that time? And on a every minute basis, you're allowing yourself to act on the most inspired ideas, on the most urgent ideas, or the most important ideas. Do it now. That's how I think about time. And now delegation, number 3. Meet my dog Benji. Benji is like my soulmate. Benji is now 11, and Benji's most favorite thing in the entire world is fetch. The thing about that is it doesn't matter if he's fetching a ball or a stick or a frisbee or anything, an oyster shell, whatever. Benji just loves the act of fetch. And I think about this because that's how I am with entrepreneurship or with creativity, right? It didn't matter if I was in the adventure world or the SaaS world, or if I was working with a client that's in HVAC and consulting them on brand strategy, or in marketing or in software consulting or anything like that. It didn't matter the industry. I just love creating. And so I look at Benji and think, well, Benji found his thing, but Benji can fetch anything. It is just the act. So what is yours? What is your act? Find your fetch. Think about that. A lot of people think, what's going to happen when I sell my business? Am I going to be able to do this again? Am I going to be bored? Do you think about that? I don't know how many of you are close to thinking about exiting or exit strategy, but that is something a lot of people struggle with, is what's next? Because I'm pouring myself, my DNA, and all of my blood, sweat, and tears into this one thing. I don't know if there's something next. Well, hopefully for all of you, the something next is the way that you poured yourself into the business that you're working on now. What is the act that inspires you, not the specific thing? It's not the ball, it's not the stick, it is fetch. Last thing I think about delegation, my wife actually got me thinking about this story. This is a photo of Chase and his shoes off on the plane. People with kids in the room? Yeah, a lot of you. So when your kids are learning to put their shoes on, it's frustrating. Especially when you have somewhere to go. You've got things to do, you're busy, and you could get those shoes on in 2 seconds. But it could take them 20 minutes. Not because they can't do it, maybe because they can't do it, but because they're going to protest, they're going to run around, you're going to have to deal with that. But if you just put the shoes on, you took the 2 seconds to put the shoes on every single time, is your kid going to learn how to put their shoes on ever? No, you have to deal with the 20 minutes. Or the 2 minutes eventually, right? You have to allow them the time. And so when you think about delegating on your plate, what is on your plate that you need to take off to give to your team to allow you to find your fetch, to do the thing that motivates you, that inspires you, that you should be doing, to get you on track to succeeding in your goals in all the areas of your life? You have to have the patience to allow your team the time. Allow the people around you to get there. Maybe not as fast as you're going to get there, maybe not as perfect as you would do it, but you have to give them that patience and that time to do it. Because that is the only way to get yourself out of it, right? Fortunately, in Trainual, we did bring the delegation planner to life. This has been a long time coming, and we use this so much. But even before this, it was just like a Google Sheet. I think Chris talked about that as well. So that we would just write down, like, these are all the things that every person in the business does. And so this is the way that we have moved things off of both of our plates as the business has grown. It has been the way that we moved things off of our VPs and directors and people managers' plates as the business has grown from, a few of us at the beginning to over 130 now. It has been this method. Before we go, I told you about my songs, the goals there, play some new shows, release some new music. I did that. The other thing that was on the list for me this year was publish a book. My first book ever. I've never published a book. But I wrote a book called Processes. It sounds stupid, right? Chris really likes to combine words. If you didn't realize from Trainual, Chris also bought the domain Processes. At the time, he was all excited. He's like, oh, systems, processes, this is going to be a cool word. We're going to get people to use this. I was like, you're so stupid. Nobody's going to use that. And we never used that word. Couple years later, though, it just kind of clicked. I saw it in the domain list again. I was like, you know what? That's like a Dr. Seuss kind of word, right? And so with that, I was inspired to write a book, a children's book for Processes. Because after helping hundreds of thousands of business professionals around the world figure out how to do systems and processes right, we realized nobody's learning this early enough. Everybody still sucks at systems and processes, right? Maybe not you. You're great. All of you are great. But let's start earlier. Let's write a children's book and a story about processes. And so I'm going to read you this story today. Because actually, this book came out today. Meet Terry. This is Terry the hamster. Named Terry after my mom's mom, my grandma. All right, we're going to put Terry right there. She stays. Okay. So, for all of you that have kids, please buy the book. For those that don't, buy two. All right, ready? By the window, Terry spun, blinking out at the sun, thinking someday, I'm gonna see where they run. The ponytail girl and the boy with the curls, it seems like they're having so much fun. But I've gotta work, I know the deal. Who else is gonna spin this here wheel? Timmy, he doesn't do nothing but sleep. No way he could do what I do. He's too weak. There's a special way she makes every turn. Terry took 2 years to learn what she learned. Wait, do you think, could he really be trained on my processes? The ones that live up in my brain? I know, what if I write it all down? Here's how many rounds you have to go round. These are the how-tos to help with the to-dos. Like this one, be careful, don't fall in the doo-doos. My son loves that line. Timmy, I know that you're going to be great because you'll have processes. They'll set you straight. With her work off her plate, she returned to the glass and thought, okay, next, how to get to the grass. Then came something wonderful, wonderfully weird. The wheel just unfolded and a ladder appeared. Was it here all along but just couldn't be seen till she learned to pass off her old routine? With one last look back, she was happy to find the wheel back in motion with Timmy inside. Timmy was loving his new profession. Her processes, in fact, became his obsession. She finally learned to let someone else grow. It felt good to move on from the old Terry show. And knowing the work would keep getting done, she swallowed her nerves and squeezed into the sun. A ride down the gutter, a jump to the yard. She thought, that was fun. This isn't so hard. Then Terry looked up, and to her surprise, there were wheels upon wheels right in front of her eyes. Opportunity everywhere. So much to do. She could train all the chipmunks to do this work too. Reflecting upon how far she'd come, could it really be me with a business to run? When you create processes, you save yourself time, and you take control of the ladder you climb. Do it like Terry. Document what you do to scale what you do way beyond you. Thank you. So that is now available. You can scan that code if you want it. Check it out. I'll wait. If you buy 50, I'll give you 30 minutes of marketing consulting. All right, to round this out, this whole thing, doing everything, right? The art of doing everything. Because we're on the children topic, right? How many of you heard when you were young, or maybe say to your kids, you can be anything you want to be when you grow up? That's great. It's inspiring, right? You're giving them the choice. They can be anything. It's motivational. But what if instead you told them they could be everything? What if you told yourself that? You can be everything you want to be. How much more limitless would you be? How much more limitless would their dreams be when they know no boundaries, when they don't have to choose? Because that's the world we're living in. Anything is a sushi knife. It's you choosing a path. I want to be a sushi knife. I'm going to be specific to one thing. Everything is a multi-tool. I'm going to be a jack of all trades and a master of fun. That's everything. Now, when we look at hiring onto our team, I'm looking for people who are everything. I want full funnel marketers, full stack engineers, people who maybe that's not what they do every single day. Maybe their job is to do this, but they know how to do that, so they can fill in if necessary. Or they're dangerous enough at it that they can help guide it. They can offer strategic advice. They're capable. Capability is everything. And so that is the end of my talk today, and I hope that you got something out of this in terms of how you plan your year, right? How you goal set, how you plan for everything to happen in your life that you want to happen, and don't just let time go by sitting on your goals, wondering if your story makes sense. How you time block to actually make it happen on a year level, on a week level, and on a daily level. Do it now. And then how you delegate. How do you free yourself up to find your fetch so that you can do everything? And that's my talk. Let's party.
Yo! Stay up here. God, is there like nothing this guy can't do? Chris and Jonathan Ronzio, everybody. What an incredible talk.